Welcome back. Today I'm going to be taking you through the only 3 training tips that you'll ever need to build muscle. My name's John. For those of you that don't know who I am, I'm a transformation coach who works online, and I've been doing that for 2.5 years now. I've helped over 100 people get life-changing transformations, all the way from people who just wanted to feel better in the clothes or look better on the beach, all the way over to people who wanted to compete in bodybuilding shows and have actually ended up winning multiple trophies doing so. The tips with training, and the reason why I'm wanting to simplify this today, is because there's so much conflicting advice out there, and there's so many influencers and, whatever you want to call them, on TikTok and Instagram giving you all these random tips, and it can make everything so difficult to figure out what you actually need to be doing inside of the gym. So what I'm going to do today is just take you through the 3 best bang for your buck training tips that you will ever need to help you gain muscle. Because if you do these 3 things, regardless of any of these fancy exercises that you might see on your on your FYP, or any of these tips that you've been given for your programming, or the next best thing, if you do these 3 things that I say today, you will gain muscle, absolutely guaranteed. And the proof's in the pudding. Like, here's a picture of me, here's pictures of my clients and their transformations all over the screen. You can see the muscle that they've built. Like I said, I've had clients who have won bodybuilding shows. I've obviously had my own transformation. I've done this with so many people at this point, and these are the 3 things that work. So the 3 tips that we're going to be going through today, and I will have separate sections for all of them. Tip number 1 is going to be your execution of the movement. Tip number 2 is going to be your intensity, and tip number 3, we're going to go through some programming for muscle building as well. So when it comes to the first one here, we're going to go through execution. And where most people end up getting this wrong is they don't treat training as a skill, and that's exactly what it is. Every single time you go into the gym, you need to make sure that you're focused on the session that you're doing. You need to make sure that when you're actually in there, you're taking notice of how you're doing the movement. Are you actually using the muscles that you're supposed to be training? If you're doing a chest press, are you keeping your chest pushed out and your shoulders locked in with your elbows in the right place? If you're trying to do a quad bias squat, are you getting enough knee flexion? If you're working the lats, are you driving the upper arm down into the hip and then driving the elbow into the hip while keeping the arm tight to the body? We need to be consciously thinking of all of these things to make sure that we're actually training the muscles that we're working. On top of that, making sure that we're controlling the weight as well. So making sure that we're going nice and slow, especially if you're a beginner and you're just getting into the gym, or if you haven't focused on this too much consistently before. You need to make sure that you're controlling the eccentric, or the lengthening portion of the rep, for at least 3 seconds. So say for an example, if we're doing a chest press, we're going to push up with good form. We're going to go 3, 2, 1, and we're going to pause at that end range there where we're lengthening the chest. Come back up to the top, we're going to pause again, and this is what we call standardizing our reps. It's really important that, 1, we learn to start our lifting journey with slow reps so we can actually learn to control the weight, but it's also really important that we standardize them, because it's so important that we get stronger over time. If we have a 3-second eccentric for every single rep and we pause at the top and the end range of the movement, what we're going to find is when we're increasing the weight or reps over the course of the weeks, which we will get into in just a sec, but when we find that we're actually increasing those over the course of the weeks, we know that we're genuinely getting stronger, because every single rep looks the exact same. If you've done 10 reps one week and then you know that you need 11 or 12 the following week, and then you start, jerking the weight up, swinging, going really quick, then you might not have actually got stronger. So it's really important that you learn to control every single rep, and that you learn to standardize every single rep that you do. Every time you're in the gym, you should really be intentional with what it is that you're doing. You should be sitting there thinking, right, am I actually using the target muscles that I'm in here to work today? How can I improve my form? Do a little bit of research, put some comments in the video below so you can ask the questions if you need to. Joe Bennett is someone that I've watched for a lot of form tips. He's incredible for learning how to lift properly. Go and watch a few of his videos on how to lift. He's probably the best free resource that you can get on YouTube or Instagram out there. He's Joe Bennett, or the Hypertrophy Coach, if you want to go and look his channel up. But making sure that you're actually treating training as a skill, and that you're trying to get better at it every single time that you go in there. You're trying to improve your form, and you're really trying to make sure you control that weight every single time that you're in there. That is so crucial to do, and make sure that you do every single time that you're in the gym. So tip number 2 is going to be intensity. So I'm going to overlay some videos over the top of me talking right now, so you can see what I mean when I talk you through this. If we want to build muscle, especially in the long term, we need to make sure that we're training hard enough to make our body want to adapt and grow muscle. To do this, we have to be training to or close to failure. Now, the way that we know that we're doing this is if we get to a point where the reps are slowing down involuntarily towards the end of the set. So the concentric portion of the rep starts to slow down. The concentric phase of the rep is the shortening of the muscle or the lifting phase of the rep. So for a chest press, that will be pushing away from you. For a lat pull down or a row, that will be pulling towards you. If you're doing a bicep curl, again, pulling the weight up. If you're doing a squat, that will be pushing the weight away from you or standing up. If you're doing a deadlift, again, pulling the weight up. So it's that lifting phase of the movement. Now, what you'll notice on the videos that I'm putting over the top here is that the very first concentric portion of the rep takes around 1 second for me to get the weight up. Now, towards the end of the set, what you'll notice is I'm genuinely trying my hardest to push the weight. You can see that I'm struggling, but the final concentric portion of that set takes around 3 to 4 seconds for me to get the weight up. If your final reps don't look slower, they don't look shaky, they don't look uncomfortable, well then naturally you're not going to gain as much muscle. Now you might get away with this at the start if you're a beginner, purely because of the fact that your body is so sensitive to muscle growth, but I'm telling you now, if you're looking at this in the long term, which you should be, you eventually will stop gaining muscle. That's just the way that it works. You're going to get to a point where your body thinks, right, I'm not really under that much stress. I don't need to adapt right now. So we need to make sure that we're putting the muscles through their full range of motion under tension, because the most important thing for muscle growth is mechanical tension. And that is literally just putting the muscles through their range of motion under high amounts of tension. So that is the most simple tip that I can give you for training intensity. It's make sure that your final reps of the set are slowing down involuntarily. Also make sure that towards the end of the set, as you're doing this, that your form does not start to go. Naturally, your body does not know that you're at the gym. It just wants to get the weight up in any way possible. So as you start to get tired, your body is naturally going to start to want to get other muscles involved. So again, if we're on a chest press, you'll see people start to round their shoulders forward like this. Make sure that you keep the form the same and standardize every single rep, especially for injury prevention. If you're doing a deadlift and you get towards the end of a set and you find that your back's starting to kind of round forward a little bit, then your risk for injury is way higher. So if you get to a point where you can't repeat the sets with or the reps with the same form, stop the set there and do not take any of those risky reps, especially in your first year or two of training. It's not worth it. I'm telling you now, train hard with intensity, but keep the form the same. Now, moving on to programming, the final bit, the juicy bit. So you need to make sure that you're in the gym a minimum of 3 times per week, right? That could look like an upper and a lower and a full body, or it could look like 3 full bodies, whatever works for you. Being in the gym twice per week, if you're a beginner, you will still see some progress, but being in the gym 3 times per week compared to 2, because of the extra volume you'll do, is way better. If you can do 4 days, even better. 5 days, probably not needed for most people, but if you can do 5 days, there's absolutely no problems with that whatsoever. So make sure you're in the gym a minimum of 3 days a week. So 3, 4, or 5 days a week is going to be the sweet spot for most people. In terms of how many times we actually want to train muscle groups per week, studies show that we grow around 50% more muscle from training muscles twice per week as opposed to once per week. The difference between training them 3 or 2 times per week is not really that big, but the difference between training them once or twice per week is pretty significant. It's around 50% more muscle growth for doing that. The reason being is that the most important thing for muscle growth is mechanical tension and motor unit recruitment. Every time we do a set, the following sets are less stimulative. So the very first set of each exercise that you do is going to be the most stimulative for muscle growth. And then let's say, for example, if you do 10 sets per week for your chest, if you do all 10 of those sets on one workout, probably the last 5 or 6 sets of that workout didn't really grow you very much muscle at all, and if anything, they just added more fatigue. You would have been much better doing 5 sets on a Monday and 5 sets on a Friday, for an example. Split your sets up over the course of the week and don't add in all of the volume into one session, because it's not going to be as efficient. It's also just going to cause more fatigue, and you will grow less muscle by doing that as well. So like I said, make sure that you split your training volume up over the week. Be in the gym a minimum of 3 days per week. And then finally, the other tip that I've got for you is just make sure that you're not doing too much volume as well. If you're genuinely training with the intensity that I'd mentioned in tip number 2, then you shouldn't need to do a shit ton of volume. At the beginning, when you've just started training, you're probably not going to have the skill to be able to train as hard as you possibly can. So you probably need something like 10 to 15 sets per muscle group per week. If you're starting to get a little bit more advanced, or you genuinely believe that you're training all the way to failure and all of your sets feel really uncomfortable and really shake at the end, honestly, 10 to 12 sets per muscle group per week is going to be fine. For muscle groups like hamstrings or calves, you're probably not going to need to train them with quite as much volume. So genuinely, 5 to 8 sets for those muscle groups is going to be totally fine. Pretty much everything else, you're going to be training around 10 to 12 sets per week. Okay, again, if you want to grow a muscle group, you can split it up with more frequency across the week, so train them 3 days. So for an example, I've got the arms of a 10-year-old boy, if you can notice here. See there, my bicep insertions are pretty shit, and so my tricep insertions, they don't grow very well. My chest grows very, very easily, but my arms don't. So I'm currently doing arms 3 days per week. I train 4 days, my legs grow very easily as well, so I'm currently doing a upper body day with some arms at the end on a Monday. I then take a break on a Tuesday, which is today, of me recording this anyway. Then I've got Wednesday, which would be arms and lower, so that would be a limbs day. So that would be me training arms right at the start of that workout. Then I take another break. Then I've got push, where I'll train my triceps. Then I've got a pull day, where I'll train my biceps. Technically, I'm training arms in every single session that I do, but the actual muscle groups is over 3 days of the week. If you have a weak muscle group, but you're a complete beginner, you probably don't need to worry about that, okay? So if you're wanting to just look better and grow overall, you don't know which muscle groups are going to respond, and you don't know genetically where you're strong yet. So I've been training for a couple of years, my arms grow a lot slower than everything else. I know that that's a really big weak point for me. If you're brand new, don't worry about it. Just train everything twice per week and be in the gym a minimum of 3 days. Now, if you want, more in-depth advice and you want a choice of 3, 4, or 5 day programs, which is going to be completely free, they're all going to come with exercise trackers. They're also going to come with video tutorials. It's going to come with nutrition tips, how to work out your calories, how to make sure you're actually, doing the right amount of weight gain, so you're not gaining too much fat when you gain muscle. I'm going to put the 4 weeks of free coaching down below. Now, you don't have to deal with me directly. There's no contracts, no sales pitch. If you hate it after a day, you can just cancel it. Again, I don't message you personally. It just takes you through the first 4 weeks of what my coaching would be like, so you can experience that in terms of online nutrition and training coaching, okay? My bonus tip for this training, which again, the 4 weeks of free coaching will take you through, is you need to make sure that you're getting stronger week on week on week. So make sure that you're adding weight and or reps every single set and every single session. If you keep your form the same and you add weight or reps every single session, you will get stronger and you will gain muscle over time. If you use the tips that I've just mentioned in this video, you do not need to worry about fancy exercises. Should I be training this at this time of day? Should I be taking my creatine? Whatever. Just train like this, eat your protein, get stronger over time, and you will gain muscle. It's genuinely that simple. If you're a beginner, especially in your first 2 to 3 years of training, you don't need to worry about any of the fancy shit. Just get in the gym consistently, train hard, eat, and recover. You will gain muscle. So again, thank you very much for taking the time to watch this video. If you do want that 4 weeks of free coaching, the link is going to be below, just so you can get some free advice. And if you have any questions, as always, please put a comment below, and don't forget to subscribe so that you don't miss the next one. See you in the next video.